All right, everybody, welcome to Tesla Today. So, you might not know, but this week is incredibly important for Tesla stock. You probably already heard that yesterday, Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley raised the price target for Tesla to 400. We're going to review that report. But more importantly, there's going to be a book by Walter Isaacson for Elon Musk, biography. And one of the excerpts he talked about was this decision that they made to move the building of the compact car back to Austin from Giga, Mexico. And we're going to show you some videos of our guest, Larry Goldberg, who actually called that correctly last week. Then this Friday, the unions, UAW, is going to make a decision. They're going to come to the head with a big three, whether or not there's going to be a strike. And we've got news about Volkswagen as well. So welcome, Larry. I'm traveling right now at the All In Summit, which we'll
Undisclosed
discuss also.
location. Undisclosed.
Well, thank you for. It's so dark back there too, so hopefully that's not the reason. But thank you for joining me. Larry has been a regular guest of the show. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an investor in Tesla for long term. So thank you, Larry. So let's start off with this biography that Walter Isaacson been sharing some excerpts. As we know, he has written books, and I read 3 of his books on Einstein and Benjamin Franklin, and then of course Steve Jobs. I'd like to ask you how you think Elon and Steve Jobs compare. But one of the excerpts that was released recently was this concept that Elon Musk decided to change the initial build location for the next gen Tesla car and the robo-taxis from Mexico to Austin. And he did that in May. And so this is something that you have actually been saying, and I've been saying, no way, they're so committed to Mexico. But you've been hinting that, that it doesn't stop Elon from making decisions like this. You said it last week. I'll play a clip of that. And so we know that this new mass market vehicle, and it could be 2 vehicles that are built on the same next generation platform, one robotaxi, one for the mass market. And initially, they announced that it's going to be in a factory in northern Mexico, as we all know, because it's got the new unboxed model. But then this expert showed from Walter Isaacson, he said that, Elon started to think that he really wanted his engineers to be able to be located as closely as possible to the assembly line. And he knew that they would not be relocating to Mexico. And so he says here in the bottom paragraph here, in May 2023, he decided to change the initial build location for the next gen cars and robo-taxis to Austin, where his own workspace and that of his top engineers would be right next to the assembly line. So let me play this clip, and hopefully you guys are not confused, because this is me and Larry. It's a clip of me and Larry in another one of these episodes, but you'll see how Larry already knew that this might already happen. So.
Actually, in a way, it's worse than Germany.
What?
Germany, the process is transparent and the process is known. It happens to be a very long and very difficult process, but it's known. In Mexico, it looks like it's not even known. I mean, maybe Tesla just gets done and says, no, we're moving to India. Mexico has to, they better focus, because, there's a guy that runs Tesla, the head of Tesla, he's famously impatient. So my message, look, I'm serious. My message to Mexico is, guys, you better move, because, at this point, I don't know that they've actually paid for the property. I don't know that they bought the property, but this is not a good start.
Okay, so you can see that I'm actually wearing the same shirt. So that was a recording of you, Larry, basically calling it, already getting the feels that maybe they're not going to move forward with Mexico.
And I went on to say that the unbox process is highly automated. We're going to have a lot of bots in that process, including, the new the new Tesla bot. And so the wage differential, I made the point, is not going to be that great anyway. So it doesn't make any sense to move, it's not even the distance. It's the process of getting over the border, getting to the plant. I mean, I was going to drive there after my visit to Starbase and just decided to can it because I didn't have a confidence that it was going to happen. I don't have confidence it's going to happen. at all.
Yeah. It's shocking, actually, that he made the move. He made the decision in May, but yeah, it's going to be in uh, in Giga Texas. Well, do you think that Giga Mexico will still be built? And what would they build there now?
It's possible that they will, but I'm not convinced that they will. Have you seen the land in Texas? Have you seen the
Right.
flyers and of the full extent of that land? It's
Yes.
gigantic. Now, their labor costs are the only differential between Austin and Mexico, I believe, is the labor costs. And if we get the bot in good time and it proves to be successful, that's a non-factor. So why would we build there?
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So tell me about Walter Isaacson's book. It's going to be published tomorrow. I think this is going to generate a lot of conversations again, both good and bad, about
Yes.
Elon and Tesla. But I know that Walter has already said that this isn't, this is not a glowing, beautiful, perfect person kind of analysis. He's going to share some of his demons as well. But what's your expectation about this book?
Walter has proved to be a very good friend of the community of the Tesla retail investment community. He has participated in a lot of spaces, and he's been very open and very willing to listen and very willing to share. And so he's a very good observer. I asked him the question, what is the difference between writing for somebody who's dead, who's
Mm.
passed, and somebody who's alive and still in the middle, of his journey? And, he thought long and hard about that. And he had some very interesting observations to make. One of which is, you know, when you have somebody who's alive and is prepared to share and be as open as Elon, and Elon has been more open than almost any subject he's written about, certainly in a book. Um, the judgment is different because you're not looking through the third party written pages or even the personal written pages. And so he sees both the good and the bad, and that's both good and bad for his subject in terms of revealing all. Um, so I think it's going to be a very interesting book, but it's still the middle of the story, and and I think there's going to be another volume written in due course because I think Walter is really engaged in the story and the journey of Elon Musk. So you're right. I think it's going to reveal some negative and some positive. And it's interesting that he wrote about this Ukrainian piece, the issue of the Starlink being closed to the Crimea and Ukraine calling him up to ask him to open it up. And actually, he spoke about that at the All In Summit today, at his appearance in the All In Summit. And he said, had he got a call from the President of the United States or Secretary Blinken, and they had requested him to do that, he certainly would have complied. But he was getting a call from a foreign government asking him to allow them to attack a foreign country or the occupation of a foreign country, I guess, in strict terms. And he just wasn't comfortable because, the issues were far beyond his pay grade. He didn't use those words. Those are my words. I don't know what his pay grade is.
Ah,
So, so I whatever the pluses or the minuses or the controversy were or are, I think that it's really good for us to get this insight into his thinking and I think the transparency that Elon has conducted his life, the transparency with which Elon has conducted his life, and which he has allowed due to the unprecedented exposure he's given Walter, which Walter has spoken about several times, is truly amazing. Truly amazing. And that's the nature of Elon. I think that's why some people really, really, really are so suspicious, and other people are so welcoming of a public figure who allows this kind of openness in what he does. But it's in his deeper thinking and his thought patterns and his moods that I'm not sure whether Walter has penetrated yet. And I listened to the full interview that Walter did with who was it? It was this long interview with, and in the interview, Walter said,
Lex
there are
Friedman.
these. It was Lex. It was Lex, right? I listened to the whole thing. In fact, it was last night, which is amazing how the time is. I was at the All In conference today. It was epic. It was like living a whole week of conference. Anyway, yeah, and so I'm not sure he is confident he's penetrated the man yet, which is amazing given the access he's been given.
Yeah, I think Walter has said that there's been no one else of all the people that who was alive that gave him this many hours for this many years. And so I kind of
He
set
went
this up
beyond that.
as
He went beyond that. He
yeah,
said he's not sure any biographer,
has ever
and
had
he,
this.
he talked about Johnson, and that's going back uh, almost 400 years, that a biography of this depth has been allowed to be written. And of course, there will probably be a second volume if if Elon doesn't freak at what's been written.
I like that you said it's going to be second volume. Okay, so by the time when we publish this video, the
Mm-hmm.
biography of the book by Walter Isaacson would have come out. I set this video this episode up as being things that really going to impact the stock. Of course, I don't expect that the book's going to impact the stock near term.
It
We're going
may
to talk
be
about
negative. It may be negative
we're going to talk
because
about you. Yeah, go ahead.
the media is going to pick on these
Yeah.
stories the way they picked on the Ukraine story, pitch it negatively. It's inexplicable to me, but he's got enough enemies that want to do the damage and will do the damage, and so there will be a drip, 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 drip over the next week of negative stories and very long form stories in the New Yorker and the Atlantic and
Yeah.
all the usual suspects. So that will have a depressing effect, not a very significant one, but a depressing effect. And unless there's something revealed in the book that none of us are even thinking about.
But I was going to say that it's important for people like us who are investors in Tesla to really understand the man himself. He craves drama, and so there's going to be drama. Don't
Yes.
think that it's ever going to go away. It's embedded in his early childhood, and you'll read about it. And so just take it. If you just part of the package here, if you want to be an investor in Tesla, and he goes to the moon, he goes to Mars. He's going to go for it, and so far he's been hitting it right. So the book is coming out, and then today you are actually at the All In Summit. And so the reason we're bringing this up is because Elon actually was called in and he was a member. So today's Monday, you are physically there at the summit. This is the four, they call themselves besties. They're all venture capitalists that they have a very successful podcast, and they had discussion on technology, markets, economy, science, and politics. And of course, they've been interviewing all the top politicians, and Elon was there. So, can you tell us what did Elon say at this All In Summit?
Yeah. So Elon called in over Starlink from his jet in the air. I don't know. I don't know if that's ever been done before in a conference. I think that's a first. Apart from a split second glitch right at the beginning when things were being set up, it was excellent, excellent coverage. There must have been a delay. There shouldn't have been, but there must have been a delay because he would talk on while people still were about to or were asking a question. So there was that. And a lot of time was spent on explaining the Ukraine situation, um, as I pointed out a little bit earlier, and that took a bit of the conversation. Um, he talked about Twitter in very positive terms. He talked about the ad revenue beginning to pick up nicely. He didn't mention Linda's name, but I wish he had, because I think she's largely responsible for whatever positive term there's been. He did talk about the ADL, and he wasn't prepared to specify that he was taking legal action against them. He did talk about the unfairness of it all, and he specified that they definitely had a big impact on the ad revenue. He said they didn't actually put a ban on it, but they asked people to put a pause on it. But a pause without end is functionally a ban, he said.
Mhm.
He talked about AI at length, repeating, the story about, the open AI, and about how he started that because of Google, and how Larry Page called him a speciesist.
Mhm.
Speciesist. Um, he But he did say that he thought that OpenAI and Tesla together would really open new doors and could be, a very huge impact on the future. Um, and he talked about full self-driving coming to maturity. He felt very confident about that. Of course, he would say that. Um, And that really, was the sum total of what he had to say. Um, I don't think there was any news that he made other than those points.
Okay. I mean, listen, I'm happy. As long as he talks AI, he talks about full self driving, and he keeps repeating that over and over
One,
again.
yeah, one thing he said reminds me, I should mention this. He talked about Dojo, and he talked, of course, about NVIDIA. But he said, the largest compute power we have is not Dojo, and it's not the NVIDIA cluster.
Hmm.
It's the 4 some million cars. If you take the compute power, the sum total of the compute power in the 4+ million cars, that's much more.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, wasn't it you? I'm, I don't know who said it. I think it might have been you, that
And
do not forget that every car has a
the
compute.
compute.
And so there's a possibility that they are going to be utilizing, just like we sometimes use the PCs, home computers, that people have to do the computing, the massive
Yeah.
computing.
I think it's
Wow.
more than, I think it's more than that. I think it's real time learning across the fleet.
Hmm.
In terms of when you have a problem on the road and you have an intervention, and that intervention is because the car's action is not appropriate for the situation you're in, the car can the computer in the car can
Yeah.
actually do the learning on the spot, send that back. And this is the conversation we had. And so I think there's a lot of value to think about the total install that Tesla has of compute, not just Dojo plus the NVIDIA clusters, but to think about Dojo, the NVIDIA clusters, plus the cars in general. So I think that we have to think about that.
Wow. Okay. So you did share some big news that nobody has said yet. That is very interesting. Thank you so much for that, Larry. So let's get to the big news that is going to impact the stock. I wanted to get your feedback in terms of what happened with Morgan Stanley, the union that's coming up this Friday. So Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas, and I did a very, very deep dive on this report with Jeff Lutz That's video is already out. So for those people who want to really understand every single slide deck that he produced, it's a 66-page report, very deep dive that they did. Basically, they raised their price target for Tesla's stock to $400 per share from 250 and added $600 billion worth to the market cap that they believe Tesla deserves. And most of it is because of their understanding of Dojo and AI that's coming up, that's happening not only in robotaxi, but also this, they finally understood network services, which is real world AI. So you can see here, $400 is their new price target in the next 12 months. And this is the big deal because this is an analyst firm, and Morgan Stanley and Adam Jones was not always a long-term bull. They've not been bullish on Tesla all the time. In fact, as late as June, just a few months ago, they were very kind of holding, have a hold on it. Now they're gone really crazy. So they're talking about AI. Tesla's not just an auto company; they're a tech company. They're an AI company. And the catalyst is Dojo, as they start understanding that they're going to be the largest supercomputer in the world in the next year. So, so this is what I just repeated here. And then you can see that the stock price from 250, only $7 is coming from auto from his projections, but mostly mobility and network services, and adds up to 400. And this price target of 400 is actually their base case. It's not even their bull case, which is over 550. And then this is the killer, I thought, was here's an analyst actually not only talking about Tesla as an AI company, but they're talking about Tesla's real world AI that will then apply beyond cars, beyond robots, but to all these other industries. This is a big deal for me because it's not just that they're talking about AI, they're talking about understanding real world AI being applied to every industry. What was your reaction when you saw this, and what's your thoughts?
I think this opens the floodgates of the conventional analysts readdressing their understanding. We knew this was going to happen. I thought later rather than sooner. Other people have been telling me sooner rather than later, and maybe they're right. I think Morgan Stanley is very influential. Adam Jonas is very influential in the community. He's kind of a mainline guy. Some of the Tesla retail investors are a little bit dismissive of him, as they are of most of the conventional analysts. There are only one or two analysts that actually have been looking at the real world AI capabilities of Tesla and understanding them. I think Jonas underestimated in his paper what he calls the battery business. I call it the energy business. I think he really seriously underestimated that. So I think there's a big piece missing in his assessment, which surprises me because he has spoken about it in better detail in the past. So, but it's a 66-page report. I've been inundated with these papers, with these talks from the All-In Summit and some of the people I've been meeting here and some of the work that they've inspired. And so I haven't really gone through all 66 pages, but in the graphs that I've seen, I think he's underestimated the size and scope of the energy business. But other than that, I think it makes a lot of sense. I still think that the bot is Optimus is completely undervalued or not valued yet fully. I mean, he's got these manufacturing items and so on and so forth, where he assigns a general potential for real world AI, and of course that's delivered by the bot. What's so interesting is that a lot of conversation at the All-In Summit by some very senior people talked about the competition between China and the US in terms of China's manufacturing prowess, and the US has lost all its manufacturing prowess. I think at one point somebody said, and we lost the steel industry, because and I wanted to shout out, get Elon to run the steel industry. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be the leaders in steel manufacturing in the world. Absolutely no reason at all. Just, give Elon the task and he'll do it. This government will never do that. But if we readdress our manufacturing, our entire industrial base with the kinds of manufacturing techniques that Elon has taught us, we can revolutionize production in the world globally, overnight. It could be another 1920s for us, or turn of the century for us. And we could reinvigorate the manufacturing and, the base industries of this country overnight. And if we eliminate some of the permitting processes and so on associated with manufacturing, even better. So I kind of got a little bit off the subject, but
Well, it's okay because I don't know if you heard this, but U.S. Steel Corp, their stock ticker is X. So
so
there's
fun.
some
Yeah,
speculation that maybe, who knows, Elon will
who
make a
knows?
bid or partner to get the bid to
Yeah.
get the X stock ticker. But other than that, I mean, so what do you think is going to happen now that you have a big mainline institutional
Yeah.
investor analyst saying, hey, this is a real deal, recognizing it, and really recognizing that Tesla is not just a car company now, they're an AI company. And then they did a whole section comparing NVIDIA to Tesla, although we're not trying to compete with NVIDIA, but they're just trying to say, look, this is, if you value NVIDIA this much, you should be thinking about Tesla too. That's a
Exactly.
big deal. What's going to happen? Do you think that other institutional analysts are going to fall in line? Or is this
You
just a
know,
blip and people are going to ignore him? What do you think?
when dogs herd sheep through a gate, they look to get that first sheep through the gate, because once they do, they know the whole flock is going to follow. And you know, this represents, I think, the first sheep through the gate. The first understanding of a fairly flock-related set of people who use, standard measures. We have our own, retail analyst who does very similar things. And I think they are beginning to understand the power of the innovator in the space, and they're beginning to understand that Tesla is not just an auto company, and they're beginning to understand that, what Elon is actually trying to do. So yeah, I think this is very important. Now, a lot depends on how quickly V12 comes out and the stories we get back from V12 as to the degree to which and the speed at which they start allocating value to it, I think.
Okay. So the other news, this is just me, Kevin, sent this out. I think this Bank of America report came out a couple months ago, end of May, and he was basically showing that Tesla is heavily undercapitalized by institutions,
Yeah.
and only 35% of funds, institutional funds, have Tesla. And of those 35%, their allocation is really low. And if you compare to Microsoft, 90% of funds have Microsoft. They're overweight by 20-30%. Amazon, Google, Nvidia, and Meta, 50 to 75% of funds own these names, 26% overweight. So, but Tesla has the worst of both: low amount of funds, low allocation. Well,
Mhm.
at some point, this sentiment will change. More institutions have to include Tesla. More institutions may increase their allocation, more buying pressure on Tesla. So, this is the table that he shared that came from that Bank of America report showing if you look at Tesla way down here, less than 30% less of a weight. So, this is potentially this event that happened with the Morgan Stanley report. We saw a jump in the stock today. What do you think, Larry? Is this going to
Yeah,
be, is this an indicator for these funds to start maybe
absolutely it
following?
is. Yeah, this is the sheep through the gate. This is absolutely, I mean, because an analyst, community goes through this change, doesn't raise the price in itself. It is that institutions need the cover, they need the agreement by the analyst community and the investment community that this is a good thing or a safe thing to do. Look, the common story I get from retail shareholders is, oh, I was told by my advisor not to touch it. Oh, I was
Mm.
told by my advisor I've got far too many shares, I should sell some of them. That's the common story I get. And that's why there's this underweight situation. I think it's going to change now. I don't think it changes kind of overnight, although the movement of the stock price indicates a very significant change in very significant. Now, I heard people say over the weekend that there's going to be a movement up because of these great stories from Walter, and the mood has changed because of all these good stories coming out, the new robo taxi coming out, and so on and so forth. I said, I don't think that's going to move the stock.
Mm.
But when I saw the Morgan Stanley report, then I kind of reversed my view. I said, well, this is serious stuff, because it is serious stuff, and I think it does move the stock. So the other news doesn't hurt, not at all, but I don't think it moves anything like the $25 move. But again, the stock is going to drift down again. I mean, the book will come out. There'll be, all the negative stuff around it, and the stock will drift down again. The big news is the Cybertruck. It's the Cybertruck, and the Cybertruck are the top three important elements in the stock price, and that's the story.
Okay. I mean, first of all, I don't really care about the daily ups and downs. I can't
Yeah,
predict those. What we're talking about when I say that it's a catalyst for the stock is over the next several months. And it is important that the narrative changing. And what you said makes sense, which is sometimes all of these things are good news, but they don't move the stock. Not, the narrative doesn't change, right? It's kind of like builds up, builds up, builds up. But then when
yes,
there's this one big event, it just then everything else follows through. So like all the good news that's been happening finally is recognized. One of the big events was, for example, a partnership with an OEM, whether it
very
was a supercharger. And some people was telling me, and this made me think, that one of the reasons why Adam Jonas, his Morgan Stanley report, their analysis was that that you can almost see, and this is Alexandro and JP and others that was in a Tesla Twitter X space with me just now. They were saying that it's like you can see that he had to hold himself back because he didn't want to
absolutely.
have some crazy number.
I agree.
He needed to keep it simple and achieve like something that's a little bit more in line. But that the only reason one of the reasons why he changed his mind must be, this is just speculation, that he has gotten wind of a potential partnership. And it doesn't have to be an auto OEM. It could be some, JP was saying could be the US military. And it could very well not be about robotaxi, and it could just be about AI partnership about that. And so it's like one of these partnership will be announced, whether it's the autonomy with that large OEM that they were in early discussions with, or it's something like this. When that happens, and then you've got these reports that are finally starting to build, eventually grows. And then so here's Alexandra. Her tweet said that, first of all, they do believe, and I think I heard you say the same thing, that this Morgan Stanley report is a big deal. It's like a moment when at least one major institutional analyst is starting to see
Yes,
the light. Apple losing its shine right now. There's a possible rating upgrade by the S&P in October. Cybertruck event, like you said, 1, 2, and 3. And then the Fed, are now the talk is that it's going to be a pause. Nothing happening at the end of this year except for potentially even a pause, not even the rate hike anymore. The Q4 increased production delivery, the new Model 3 coming out, the AI Day 3. These things are going to start building. So what's your thought?
AI
I mean,
Day.
from
Yeah, when you
yeah,
talk about AI Day as a catalyst,
yeah,
AI Day is going to
yeah,
depress the stock. I mean,
right.
it's never catalyzed ever a stock movement.
No, I understand. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a stock catalyst, but
Yeah.
it's it's like by that point the
Hmm.
narrative has been changing, and it's slowly we're starting to see it that Tesla is an AI company, and the world and investors need to see that. And that in that day they might share more info about being the largest supercomputer in the world. And that I've been saying that once they say that we are truly the largest supercomputer in the world, which is by AI Day 3, they could be there
Hmm.
already. That is the word I've been using is not only inevitable, it's undeniable at that point. You cannot not call Tesla an AI company if they've got the largest supercomputer in the world. So, I think they also have to pair that with a sale. They can't just be, oh, we have promises in the future. Nvidia's priced the way they are because they have massive sales every month they have, and they're projecting even higher earnings.
Mm.
So
Yeah, yeah, I, I think it's very important that V12 be released and be assessed by the market. That could be a very important moment because the I'll just share with you one thing about autonomy. We've had these reports about really excellent results coming out of California, and everybody's saying, "Oh, well, it's because there's so many cars learning to drive in California, and they learn the particular roads and so on and so forth." But I figured it out. I mean, I've driven across the country now, and this is the third long road trip, but I haven't been to California before. But now I figured out why we get such great drives in California, because I've had fantastic drives in California, all non-intervention drives, and I'm a guy who, I haven't had a non-intervention drive yet. Maybe one, maybe a couple, but 1 out of 20 in North Carolina, and it's very simple because the roads are excellently marked in California,
Mhm.
non-parallel. You cannot compare the roads anywhere else in the country to the roads in California in terms of the road markings and the quality of those markings. And that has had an enormous impact on the quality of Tesla's driving. But I digress. We do need to see V12 come out because we need to see Tesla's chops in FSD clearly demonstrated for the likes of Gary and the likes of Morgan Stanley and the analysts in general. Because up to now, they've always been able to say, yes, but we need to get the but removed. And this would remove it.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. So we've got news about, or we're going to hear news this Friday, what the strike is going to happen. So basically, this Forbes article was saying that, at this point, they felt that it's still very high likely that UAW is going to strike against the Detroit's Big Three. And this article saying that, hey, this is going to be good news for Tesla if they strike. If no deal is struck, about 146,000 union workers will likely go on strike on Friday. And the Sean Fain is the leader of the United Auto News leader. I think when this article was written, they said no signs of backing down, but they actually did end up backing down. I'll share that what they did just a little recently. And so the article saying that, hey, if this strike happens, you're going to see, these big three, their production and their roadmap for EVs is going to be pushed out further. This can be delayed more. This is from Wedbush analyst Dan Ives. He wrote that. GM, Ford, and Stellantis. So this can be really, really valuable to Tesla. And then this person, Dan Levy from Barclays, was saying that, I think this is going to be the most severe. Oh, no, sorry, this professor from University of Michigan, most severe and most dramatic strike in 50 years. So the news this morning, though, was that the United Auto Workers actually reduced their demand for pay raises over the next 4 years. So they buckled. They said we're okay with mid 30% range as a strike deadline.
You call that buckling? You call that buckling?
Where do you think what might happen on Friday? So it's a big deal. I mean, it's funny. CNBC had their talk, and they're like, it's a nothing burger." And I'm like, "What? Why do they think this is nothing?"
It's hard to believe that an administration run by Joe Biden, who is a union man thoroughly through and through, would allow a strike. I mean, he's probably going to give some free money to GM and to the auto companies. Well, he's already given quite a lot of free money to them, and he's going to do a lot of arm twisting, and maybe they'll back down, maybe a little bit more. I am less convinced that there will be a strike than some of these analysts are, and I just want to, by the way, say that I don't think Elon would cheer it. Elon thinks much broader and deeper and further than that. I think he would see this as negative for the country, and it would be negative for the country. But what I have to say is that I don't think that the wage demands are the ratcheting up the wages are a risk to the big auto. I think it's the work rules that are the big risk to big auto. The fact that the union does not allow, really innovative manufacturing to take place because of the work rules. And GM and Stellantis and Ford would do much better paying them the higher wages, but allowing them to become innovative in their workforce, be able to explore manufacturing methods that Tesla are exploring and have explored and have used, and allowing that to evolve on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis without these work rules that are so stultified. That would be the break for the US auto manufacturers. Absent that break, these guys are toast.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Unions, kind of like a bygone era, and for them to still be negotiating.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, unions have to become innovative. I mean, unions could work if unions became advocates of innovation, it would change everything. But,
Mm,
I mean, it's hard
yeah.
to tell a guy who's built his whole lifetime career on building that pension for that, 65th year. But and what
Yep.
happens when the bots come? I mean, those jobs go away and the union becomes defunct. What are they going to try and get the bot to join the union?
Well, actually, I just interviewed Cern Basher, and he had a fantastic model for the bot model. And what he absolutely put in there is that the government's going to do a tax on these bots by at least 30%.
And so they
And so it
should.
makes sense. And they
Yeah.
should.
So
And
they
that
should.
makes
Yeah.
sense. And that will then support society. Okay.
Yeah.
So, last bit of news here, go really quickly on this one. But finally, Volkswagen is realizing, I know that they do, but they're raising the alarm that they're going road to nowhere in China. So, they are, the chief executive officer of Volkswagen, Oliver Bloom, dispatched a person to go to China to really make decisions because they're failing badly. And they recognize that. Volkswagen's in the red, Tesla's the white, and BYD's the blue, and they're falling behind in terms of their sales for battery electric vehicles. And I think the big thing here is that they're really just realizing that because of the pandemic, BYD and Neo was able to just take over from them, and they weren't able to catch up. This is an example of what might happen when they have a strike here. Other companies just progress further, and then so while these guys dominated China, we know that Volkswagen's so struggling so badly there that they actually partnered with Neo. No, Xiaopeng. They actually invested in Xiaopeng to build them cars there. But in the U.S., of course, Tesla is kicking Audi's butt, and so they're losing sales as well. So, anyways, the whole point of this article simply is just saying they need to do something at this point. They realize that they're in really big trouble at this point. So,
I made quite a lot of friends, new friends that I made on X, um, and through these videos. I met somebody for lunch today from Germany, and they have family that work at Volkswagen. She didn't have anything good to say about this guy Bloom.
yeah.
She said that it's a disaster. It's a disaster, and it's going downhill very quickly. I don't know what the German government does. I mean, you can't just plow money into it, but the government is so shackled by these political processes that they've evolved over time. So I think it's just going to be a disaster. And, I don't think their China policy makes any sense at all. I mean, none at all. If they can't sell that car, those electric cars they made in China, why do they think that the Europeans are going to be buying them when the Chinese and the Tesla come with their cars? I mean,
Mhm.
it doesn't make any sense to me, none at all. Well, they think I don't know what they think. I can't imagine it. It just boggles the mind.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you, Larry. So basically, I think what we're saying here is the narrative is changing. We're starting to see movement. Things appear slow, but then all of a sudden it will happen. And all these little tiny business news that we're sharing today, eventually It just happens. And so thank you for that, Larry. Appreciate it. And you've made a few calls already correctly, and you've made some other speculation that might turn out to be true today too. Walter Isaacson writing another book. And so that'll be fun. Thanks, Larry. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Hey there, thank you for joining me. If you can, please consider supporting this channel so I can keep it going. It's a lot of work arranging all these amazing interviews. One of the easiest ways is just to click that join button and become a member of the channel. Thank you very much, and let's get brighter.